A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, on a Wednesday, we like to check in with Ron Ross for updates on Israel, the Middle East and the war in Gaza. Ron, welcome.
Good morning, Andrew.
The different strategies of US President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu were highlighted this week after they had a blunt phone call on Monday.
Yeah, yesterday Prime Minister Netanyahu pushed back at the Biden administration's red lines against a major Rafah military operation, insisting that Israel had no choice if it wanted to defeat Hamas. I emphasized to the President in our conversation in the clearest possible way that we're determined to complete the destruction of these Hamas battalions in Rafah. There's no way to do it other than the ground entrance, Netanyahu told the Knesset's Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. He spoke one day after his phone conversation with Biden, the first between the two leaders in over a month. It came amid a sharp debate between them over IDF plans for a major operation in Rafah, where over 1.3 million Gaza Palestinians are located. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told reporters that during Biden's talk with Netanyahu, the Israeli leader agreed to send a team of military and intelligence experts to Washington so the US could show them an alternative military plan for Rafah.
A very good response there from Netanyahu. Israel, Egypt and Qatar are resuming talks about hostage release in Doha.
Yes, Israeli, Egyptian and Qatari teams are in Doha in the latest attempt to hammer out a hostage deal. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told reporters in Washington. We believe a deal is possible and we should be able to achieve it, Sullivan said, as the talks that had languished for the last week resumed in earnest. We in the United States are going to keep pushing on that, Sullivan said. US President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu discussed the potential deal when they spoke on Monday. A senior diplomatic official confirmed that this time a more direct line of communication has been established with Gaza chief Yahya Sinwar, with less confusion and interference from Hamas's Qatar leadership. The official confirmed the general terms of the deal remained a 6 weeks pause to the war in exchange for the release of 40 out of 134 remaining hostages. It's also expected that Israelis would have to release Palestinian security prisoners and terrorists held in their jails.
And the leading Palestinian Authority faction, Fatah, blames Hamas for the suffering of the Palestinian people.
Yes, I find this very interesting. The Palestinian Authority slammed Hamas, blaming the Gaza-based terror group for the ongoing suffering of the Palestinian people. Did Hamas consult the Palestinian leadership or any Palestinian National Party when it made its decision to carry out the adventure of last October 7, which led to a catastrophe more horrific and crueler than the Nakba of 1948, said their statement. Palestinian groups often use the word Nakba, which is Arabic for catastrophe, to describe the establishment of the State of Israel. Notably, the statement from the Palestinian Authority, who the Biden administration is pushing as a viable peace partner for Israel, did not condemn the atrocities of October 7. In closing, the statement called out Hamas leaders for fleeing the Strip while abandoning the Gaza public to face a brutal war. Despite the scathing statement from the Palestinian Authority, Hamas is significantly more popular among the Palestinian people. According to recent polls, a vast majority, more than 80%, of residents of PA-controlled areas in Judea and Samaria believe that Hamas was correct in launching the October 7 massacre.
A senior Hamas security official was eliminated in a raid on Shifa Hospital last week.
Yeah, the Israel Defense Forces and Shin Bet released a joint announcement on Monday revealing that Fayeq Babouk, head of the Operations Directorate of the Hamas Internal Security, was killed during the overnight raid on the Shiva hospital compound where he had been attempting to hide. According to the announcement, Israeli forces killed Mahbub during a gunfire exchange following his attempt to resist arrest. Posted to Telegram, the announcement said that Mahbub, who was accused of coordinating terrorist activity in the Gaza Strip, was armed and hidden within the hospital grounds when discovered and killed by Israeli forces. The IDF also reported finding a cache of weapons in an adjacent room. Mahbub has been in charge of all Hamas's internal security forces throughout the war.
And heroic Israeli civilians received the Israel Prize for saving nearly 100 people back on October 7th.
Yeah, the Israel Prize for Civilian Heroism will be awarded to a threesome who called themselves, after the fact, Team Elkanon, for their actions in saving over 100 lives on October 7, Education Minister Yoav Kish announced. Brothers Elkanon and Menachem Kalmanson and their nephew Itiel jumped into a car from their homes in Otniel on the morning of the Hamas invasion, after Elkanon got word of what was happening on the Gaza border due to his position as the village's security head. They drove nearly 80 kilometres to Kibbutz Be'eri, where IDF forces had already begun battling with the dozens upon dozens of Hamas terrorists who had taken over the kibbutz. The trio took to an armoured truck and began going house to house to find residents to rescue. In many cases, they first killed terrorists they found inside the homes. In other places, they saved families as their houses were burning down around them. Stuffing 10 to 12 people into a space meant for 4, they sped out of the kibbutz to safety. The brothers were finally shot and wounded when they entered a dark house where a terrorist ambushed them in the early morning of October 8. Elkanon died in Menachem's arms. His grave is the first in Israeli history to be engraved with the insignia of the IDF and the Mossad security service, as he had served both for years with honour.
And there were many, many stories of heroism on that day, and some ended tragically for individuals like that and others didn't. But I'm sure many of those stories won't even be told, Ron. There are so many that day. But Ron Ross, I want to thank you again for this update on Israel, the Middle East and the war in Gaza.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.